Welcome to the next episode of the Gallic War. After the successful Battle of Arras, the Roman engineers built a bridge over the river, and Caesar's troops began to pursue the Helvetii. Impressed by the engineering skills and shocked by the massacre on the other side of the river, they sent envoys to Caesar to negotiate peace. They asked him to make peace and go wherever Caesar wanted them to be. But if he wants to continue fighting them, then he should think of the old misfortune of the Romans and the bravery of the Helvetii. Divico, the leader of the Helvetic embassy, had been a general in the war against Cassius's troops. Caesar appeared unimpressed and replied that he could not forgive them for their raids through the land of the Aedui, Ambarians, and Allobroges. He promised them to help. Nevertheless, he agreed to make peace if they handed over hostages to him. They should also publicly apologize to the tribes they harmed. Divico was furious. The Helvetii are used to having hostages taken, not handing them over. He left, and the peace negotiations failed. The following day, both armies set out. Caesar sent his cavalry to scout out where the Helvetii were going. The Roman army pursued the Helvetii for 15 days, but the Romans' grain supplies became scarce. They had to be supplied by the Aedui every day in order to ensure adequate supplies. The weather conditions became worse, the grain in the fields was unripe, and he could no longer be supplied by grain ships because the Helvetii turned away from the Saone. The Aedui's grain supplies became less and less reliable day by day. Caesar had to act before supplies became too scarce. He called a meeting and complained to the responsible chieftains. After all, he was acting in their interests. Liscus, one of the princes, finally broke the silence and told him the reason for this. He named some private individuals who had so much influence among the common people that they prevented the masses from supplying Caesar's troops. They preferred to live under the yoke of another Gallic prince rather than that of the Romans. They were afraid that Caesar himself would oppress the country after he freed it from the Helvetii. Their concerns shouldn't be wrong. Caesar ended the meeting and asked Liscus for a one-on-one conversation. It turned out that Dumnorix was the mastermind behind this thing. As a merchant, he had become very wealthy and maintained numerous cavalry at his own expense. He had great influence over other tribes. His entire family was married to other powerful chieftains. He himself was married to a woman from the Helvetii tribe. Because of that, he was friendly to the Helvetii. Furthermore, his power was weakened by the arrival of the Romans. He hoped to be able to drive out the Romans and thereby gain royal rule over the Helvetii. Thanks to him, the Helvetii were allowed to march through the land of the Sequani. He had the hostages taken without the knowledge of the other chieftains. It was his fault that Gaul was in such turmoil. Caesar considered killing Dumnorix, but he held his brother Diviciacus in high regard. He feared that he would lose his loyalty if he had Dumnorix executed. That's why he asked Diviciacus for a personal conversation. He told him about the allegations against his brother and made it clear to him that he had to take action against him. Diviciacus was understanding, but asked him not to act too harshly against his brother. In addition, he would lose all influence if something were to happen to his brother and wouldn't be able to support him anymore. Caesar brought Dumnorix into the conversation and openly explained his accusations against him. He promises to forgive him for his actions on behalf of his brother, but warns him not to do so in the future. That was the end of the conversation. Caesar had Dumnorix observed by spies.
Eyes are open.
Will Dumnorix keep his promise? What will happen to the Helvetians? In the next episode, we will look at the decisive Battle of Bibracte. Stay tuned, your geek philosopher.